Yes. So let's put Airbnb as the standard for all of them because the end user, that's what they know. But in addition to Airbnb, there are other websites that are dedicated to furnished housing for military professionals. And so let me think. One off of the top of my head. You see, I don't deal with military because my market, we don't have any military bases. But I have one. There's a gentleman. He helps you to get your property pretty much certified. He inspects it and he says, okay, do these 2 or 3 things. And then it will be certified and added to the database. That's something that's very important to take into consideration if your property is in an area that can serve a lot of military people. And I know him from LinkedIn. So I'll look for that for the audience, Luis, for sure.
Hi, everybody. Jose Luis Morales. Welcome back to another episode of the Morales Group Show. Today, we have Dr. Rachel Gainsburg. She is a doctor, or previously a doctor, now an investor and educator in short-term and mid-term rentals. And today, she is going to be educating us on how to rent a property via a mid-term rental, and also avoiding rookie mistakes when entering the midterm rental market. Now, I want to be clear with our viewers. This is a very important topic right now, with Airbnb putting a lot of different restrictions on short-term under 30-day rentals. This is something that a lot of people are looking to learn. Also, if you have a long-term rental, you may be able to add additional cash flow to your long-term rental by focusing on the midterm rental. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rachel. We're going to call you Dr. Rachel today.
Thank you so much, Jose, for having me. And I'm really excited because the work that you put into putting this podcast together is offering immense value to the community. So thank you. If you're listening right now, share this with your community because I know it takes a lot of work to gather guests and to put this information out.
I appreciate you. So Dr. Rachel, for those of you that don't know who you are, who is Dr. Rachel? And then how did you get involved in the short-term / midterm rental and specifically real estate investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So graduated from school. I was a little girl from Haiti. I learned about faith and education. Those were the 2 things that were a part of the core fabric of my upbringing. And then went on to school. Once we graduated, though, my husband and I, we had about $500,000 in student loan debt. We worked our fingers to the bone between the 2 of us. We worked 5 jobs at one point, and it was pure madness. And so we realized quickly that, okay, we're working hard to get this debt behind us, but this is not sustainable. You know, we're young, we can do it, but your body can only take so much. So how do we figure out a way to make money while we sleep? Like Warren Buffett says, right? If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. So fast forward on the other side of it, we switched from our Dave Ramsey, binge listening and doing the things to bigger pockets. And so we started to understand what it means to invest in real estate. And real estate is something that we understood. We don't necessarily understand all of the other investment strategies out there. You know, asset allocations, cryptocurrencies, all of these weird foreign things. But a house you can touch, you can see it, you can feel it. That I understood. And then that's where we started to really look into real estate. But we wanted to be strategic. Again, we didn't want to exchange our hours for dollars. So where can we get the biggest bang for our buck? And where could we set up ourselves in a way that we're not exchanging our hours for dollars? And so the biggest bang for the buck was short-term rentals. And then the hours for dollars was midterm rentals. And that's how we're here today.
I love it. I love it. So for our viewers that don't know what a midterm rental is, what is a midterm rental?
So midterm rentals are typically furnished accommodation, fully furnished houses or fully furnished accommodation, similar to a short-term rental like an Airbnb property, but the guests are renting it out for 28 days or more.
I love it. You know, it's funny. We had an Airbnb that we did on an ADU and they just hit us with that any Airbnb or any ADUs can't be less than 30 days. So now we're like, okay, long-term or midterm. So this is a great topic for that. So what are the different types of midterm rentals? Most people think there's only a couple. What are the different ones?
There are so many different midterm rental avatars. So, as far as the actual structure, you can use a house, an apartment, an ADU potentially as a midterm rental. But the people who are looking to stay in the midterm rental, they need to understand that midterm rental demand was here even before the buzz around travel nurses got here, right? So, travel nurses, everyone started about them around COVID. My sister's a travel nurse. I know this intimately. So, but midterm rental demand is older than COVID, according to Price Labs. And so you can have academic housing. So those, students who are living in dorms, that's a midterm rental. You can have higher education professors who are coming to a university to train students for a couple of months. That could be midterm rental. Seasonal workers, seasonal trainers, film industry, entertainment industry, say they're coming in to put on a play in town and the play runs for 2 months or 3 months. That's a midterm rental. Construction workers, disaster relief, diplomats. We're in an election cycle, right? So political campaign staff are going to be traveling around needing midterm rentals. So there are so many. And oh, I didn't mention another big one, like military housing and government contracts and research scientists can be coming to an area. There are so many different midterm rentals. And so each area, understand what is popular in your area. Like right now in Georgia, we have big film industries, right? So we're the Hollywood of the South. So we serve a lot of midterm rentals for the filming industry. And that's before the SAG after strikes. Now that there are strikes, right? We're just focusing on the insurance. So I tell everyone, try to have two different midterm rental avatars that you're tapping into, because I believe many of us live in a location where there are at least two different avatars that you can tap into.
I love it. And this is all good because I think it opens people's eyes. So
Yeah.
I haven't, like, usually I'm in acquisition mode, but because prices are a little higher, I just ask myself, how can I maximize the rent per property that I already own? So we're
Yes.
exploring different options like midterm rentals. So let's
Yeah.
break down each one of them individually. And since the topic is how to rent out a property via midterm rental, let's give people some tips as to how to target some of these different avenues of renting a property. So if I wanted to target, and I'll save the insurance and nurses for last,
Mm-hmm.
but if I wanted to target, let's say, the film industry, how would I go about doing that? Like, let's say I live in Los Angeles or Atlanta. How would I go about targeting the film industry in that case?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Your lowest hanging fruit, believe it or not, is still Airbnb. And here's why. Airbnb is the Google search for temporary housing, right? So, say that person is in the cast or the crew. We have received a lot of inquiries initially on Airbnb. And then, if they need to extend, we can take them off platform and work with their agent. They're specialized agents, they're actual real estate agents who help with relocation. So the real estate agents who help with relocation specialists, they help the film industry as well. And there are a few of them who actually specialize in working with the film industry in our towns. So think about it that way. So Airbnb honestly is still the lowest hanging fruit because that's one of the very first places that the actual potential guest is looking, because that's what they know, right? It's the Google. They did good with their SEO for sure.
Got it. Now, are there certain, like, I know you mentioned relocation companies or agency companies that maybe help in the film industry. Are there any off the top of your head that you would know that would be specifically for the film industry?
That's a good one. Off the top of my head, I can't think about it right now, but let me think about it. Hang on. In Focus is one. In
Uh,
Focus. Yeah,
got it. Okay, sounds
I'm
good.
glad I remembered. Yeah, because it's,
Yeah.
it's been a while. Because, like I said, because of the strikes, they haven't really been traveling much. So throughout it all, the insurance one is the one that it stands the test of time because there's always property
Always going to be.
damage. It's there's no seasonality with it. It's year round. So yeah.
So that would be the most important one, basically.
Yes, I believe I with all my heart that's the one. Yes.
And maybe some of these other ones you target in a similar
Mhm.
fashion, like so maybe like military housing, or maybe
Mhm.
even like higher education, you target them in a similar way. What would be
Mhm.
ways of targeting? Because I think like, so the idea of midterm rental to me is great. Like, oh my god, I'm going to
Yeah.
rent it 30-day plus, I'm going to charge a little bit above market value to be able to deal with this. But I think where I get caught up is in the, okay, how?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
how? Like, okay, so if I wanted to target higher education or like
Mhm.
military housing, how do you think I would go about doing that, aside from Airbnb? Or would Airbnb still be the best way? And are there any additional tips for the other ones?
Yes. So let's put Airbnb as the standard for all of them because
Yeah.
the end user, that's what they know. But in addition to Airbnb, there are other websites that are dedicated to furnished housing for military professionals. And so let me think one off of the top of my head. You see, I don't deal with military because my market, we don't have any military
Yeah.
bases, but I have one. There's a gentleman, he helps you to get your property pretty much certified. He inspects it and he says, okay, do these two or three things, and then it will be certified and added to the database. So that's something that's very important to take into consideration if your property is in an area that can serve a lot of military people. And I know him from LinkedIn. So I'll
I
look for
love it.
that for the
Yeah.
audience, Luis, for sure.
If you could send that to us, that would be fantastic. Okay,
Yes.
cool. And then I'm imagining that like the academic housing or
Hmm.
seasonal workers or even construction, any tips for construction people? Like if you want to target construction companies, I had another one of our guests say that he would drive by hotels that have longer stay hotels and see which
Mm,
construction companies were parked in those hotels, get the company name, call the owners, and then offer his midterm rentals. Which, when I thought about that, I was like, oh my God, that is like, that's a
brilliant.
pretty brilliant idea. I don't know how ethical it is, but I thought it was phenomenal. Any
I
other
love it.
ideas to rent out in some of these other areas?
Yeah, Furnished Finder is another platform that I have heard that works for the construction workers. So they're looking on Airbnb still, of course, but Furnished Finder is another one. But the idea that you just gave was amazing.
That's
I
funny.
love that. We'll add that to our list of things to do for sure. But yeah, when you're in a town where there's new construction being built up and a massive amount of new construction, oftentimes they do have to bring in laborers from out of town. So they will pile in five, six, or seven construction workers in a property, and so they're paying a little bit more, because you have quite a few, and if you can place them in a property, it's so much better than them being in a motel or being in a place where they're not comfortable. Imagine having a little backyard with somewhere that they can barbecue. It really
Yeah.
elevates their quality of living. So yeah,
I love
think
it.
about that.
So let's go into insurance agencies. I think this is the big one, and I think this is the one where it's easier to target. It's available in every single market. There's always going to be insurance claims. If I
Yes.
wanted to target insurance companies, how would I go about doing that?
Okay, so this is my bread and butter. So I'm going to set up straight because this is my area of expertise. This is what I absolutely love. So the first reason why a lot of members of our community, Jose, are not getting those insurance stays or getting those inquiries or getting the interest, the number one reason is because their calendar is out of sync. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that your calendar, or you have a listing that has a calendar that's open wide enough so that when someone puts in a search, a length of stay of, the next 30 days, they can see your property show up. So your property is not showing up on search. And one of the number one places that the end user looks is still Airbnb, but the insurance companies are not looking on Airbnb. The end user is on Airbnb. So make sure you're still optimized on Airbnb and you're speaking to that client avatar. That's number one. Number two, there are a number of platforms that you want to list on to gain visibility. Okay. You want to list on the National Temporary Housing Agency sites. You want to list on the local temporary housing agency site. You want to list on, if you're a larger home, 4+ bedrooms, you want to list on corporate housing by owner. That's another site. You want to list on your usual OTAs, Airbnb, Verbo, Furnished Finder. You want to make sure that you're connected with your local um, hosts as well, because it's such a networking vibe and a networking community. Like, this is so much more different than short-term rental, where it's like a feeding frenzy. Here, there's complete collaboration is key. And then, of course, I'm building my own network as well nationwide. So you want to list on my network once it's up and running as well. So let's go back to the top. The number one temporary housing agency in North America is a company called ALE Solutions. So if you go to alesolutions.com, you can list your property there. So that's the number one. And there are several others like it, like Temporary Housing Directory is another one as well. Okay. So that's your national. Now let's go to your local. If you want to list on your local, you need to do a little bit of research, because I know here in Atlanta, there's one called Signature that's local. Okay. So that's where you want to list. So number one, again, if we can go through overall how to gain visibility, you want to make sure your calendar is optimized. Number two, you want to list on the platforms. And number three, you need to set your property up in a way that's appealing and enticing, and that's going to get those bookings. And so the insurance companies, they have a relationship already with the major REITs, the major apartment communities, right? So say a one bedroom, they need that. They'll work with a furniture company, furniture rental company. They'll stand that up, and in 48 hours, they're set up. So you don't want to compete if you're in a market with like a whole lot of REITs. They have thousands of doors and there's a bunch of vacancy. Now you put your own one bedroom on the listing and you're not getting hits and you're wondering why. How do you stand out from the crowd? So my focus is to get larger properties. I recommend it 3 bedrooms plus. Ours is 5 plus, but I want to be desirable to the insurance. The easiest way to get picked up is to not look like you're one of the others. And so if you're a 3 or 4 bedroom, fully furnished, pet friendly, have accessibility components to your property, you're going to be one of the only ones in your entire market. So 30% of hosts are willing to be pet friendly, and about 85% of guests are traveling with 1 or 2 pets. And so I have a lot of hosts that I'm not going to be pet friendly. I get it. I didn't start off pet friendly, but after you get the 8th request to be pet friendly, and when you understand the dollars, and the dollars are significant. When I say significant, they're significant. I'm talking 5-figure payouts per month per property. That's significant. So yeah, you're going to have to figure out how to become pet friendly.
Yeah. I love it. Good. And then, are there, I know that you mentioned 3 or 4 bedroom properties. Are there certain types of properties like single families, condos, townhomes, that are better suited for the midterm space, in your
Not
opinion?
necessarily. At the end of the day, that guest who's impacted by whatever the disaster, the goal is to get them into a space that's as close to their lifestyle as possible. However, if they always lived in a condo is perfect. If they always lived in a house, a single family home, a single family is perfect. But will a townhouse work? Absolutely. It will work too. So as long as the standard of living is similar and they're close to the schools, they're close to their property that's being renovated, they have the access. They're, say, if they were on one level because someone has, a disability in their family, and now you're putting them on a 3 level, that's going to be challenged, right? So those are the things to kind of think about.
I love it. I love it. What are some of the mistakes that you see in the midterm rental space for rookies? Or what are some of the challenges that you see most people make in this space?
Okay, I'm going to say 2 cliches, and I hope you guys could bear with me. Number 1, your network is your net worth. And number 2, the fortunes are in the follow-up. So one of the mistakes that they make is not connecting with other hosts that are in their local market. That network is really important, because at the end of the day, if an insurance, Luis, you and I were hosts in a market, the insurance reaches out to me, I don't have availability. Guess what? Am I going to say no to a $16,000 a month booking for a house? The mortgage is $2,300 a month. I mean, it makes no sense. The answer is always yes. The number one rookie mistake I see them make is like, I don't know, I'm hemming out. The answer is yes. Tell them yes, yes, and then go and figure it out as soon as possible. And so I need to know that Louise has availability. So Louise, come and take this deal down. And when Louise has an inquiry, Louise says yes, and he's like, Rachel, come and take this deal down so that we can continue to, everyone gets to eat, but you have to say yes. They don't have time for hemming and hawing. The person who's reaching out to me, say Melody, she works for the insurance. She reaches out to me. She's taking care of a water pipe that burst in my community, because that's what we get all day is water pipes bursting. Like, what's happening to the water pipes? It's an epidemic. The water pipes are bursting. But she's also taking care of Maui, where there's a massive disaster in Maui, right? She's trying to house those people. So if you're giving her a back and forth, you're not giving a complete response. Yes, here's my proposal. And then you figure it out. You find out who else in your community can serve. As a matter of fact, when everyone in the community said they couldn't do it, that's when I learned how to do Airbnb arbitrage. I was like, okay, sir, you have a property. Do you remember the fire that just occurred? I have a guest a family who needs a home for 5 months. Can I rent your property for 18 months so that we can put this family here, and then Allstate is paying me? I'll pay you your $26.50 per month that you're asking for. I'll pay it on time. I'm just fully occupied. And in 72 hours, we got that place set up. Allstate paid us $16,000 a month. We're paying rent $26.50. I mean, I wasn't getting that. I wasn't getting that my full-time job per month, So for me, the answer is say yes. Build a network within your community. Your network is your net worth. That changes lives. That number changes lives. It can change someone's life. And number two, the fortunes are in the follow-up. The biggest mistake they make is I see members of our community, they say, well, the insurance agent ghosted me. What? No one's ghosting you. Get a cadence, I don't cold call. That's not my cup of tea. I know some other people do out there, but if they reach out to me, I'm locking it down. Every 2 days, it's like, hey, Melody, did you send it? Did they just approve it? I'm ready for you. We got this. Let's get this family in there. Let's, almost like a motivational speaker. Let's go. Run me my bag. Give me my coins, because they have a need and I can help meet that need.
I love it. What do insurance companies or relocation assistance companies look for in host? Like, obviously, like, it sounds like good communication's one of them. Do they, like, if I only have one property, is it bad for me to try to build a relationship with a midterm with an insurance company? And what advice would you say that most insurance companies look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, if you're trying to become an enterprise level or something along those lines, that's one thing if you're working at that level. But these agents, these temporary housing agents, they're just looking for one client to get into one house. That's it. One client to get into one house. And if you can serve that need, you're golden. So what they're looking for is a complete response. They're looking for flexibility. So another mistake that I've actually seen is the guest is staying with you. They ask for 30 days, right? And you gave them 30 days and then you let your property get booked the next month. Well, that's amateur hour, because one thing everyone needs to know is even if they ask for 30 days, they have a notice to extend opportunity. And you should know fire damage will never get fully repaired in 30 days. That's a 9-month project. You should have blocked off your calendar for at least 11 months. I had a fire damage guest in my house for 13 months. So now you're telling them, oh, now we have to move them out, right? So they're looking for, it's a terrible experience. People moving is a really stressful. Now they're moving, right? And you're like, but you only asked for 30 days. And so that's why, the elevated level of hosting is, and you can we charge a little bit more, but we say we guarantee unlimited extensions, right? Bundle pricing, everything is included. We're pet friendly. Some of our properties are accessible. Not all of them are, right? So you want to kind of promote yourself in that way. And then it shows them, okay, I'm dealing with a professional. I'm not dealing with an amateur.
Talk to us about the unlimited extensions. That sounds like it would be important in those sorts of situations.
So you need to gauge it. So anyone who has a little bit of real estate experience, if there is water damage, right? Water damage is going to take 4 months to repair if it's like massive water damage. So you want to go ahead and open up your calendar for maybe 6 or 8 months, because guess what? Halfway through the project, you found out Well, this
Oh,
contractor wasn't exactly who they said they were, and then they're gone, which is what happened, right? So you're starting all over. So things happen, whether it's a contractor issue, whether it's the contractor's workers issue, whether it's a supply chain issue. So water damage minimum is 4 months, but realistically, you want to hedge for like 6 months. And then fire damage minimum is 8 months, but we block for 12 months. And so that's what you want to do in this space. You want to think ahead, even when they're not thinking ahead. You need to think ahead. You're like almost the representative, the educator, the supporter in the space, you know? So you got to think for them. They're going through a lot. The agent's going through a lot. You need to think for them because you are the business owner and it's in your best interest if you can continue to serve this population because of the finances. It's great. The time freedom too. The time freedom is wonderful. And the win-win is you get to help someone in your community who is encountering, you know, some of the most devastating uh, months and or even a year in their lives.
I think part of being able to serve these type of clients really well is understanding what they're going through as well too. Like their
Yes.
house literally just burned down or they have water damage. What are some of the other things that come up with insurance? Is it mainly just water and fire, or are there other things that come up in these cases that would how long do those things typically take to repair? Because I
Yeah.
think
So
that
the
helps.
Yeah. So the main three is water, fire, and fallen objects, hail, fallen trees, things that just really damage the house. Those are the disasters that I typically serve. But there are others like for us, 80% of our clients is water and fire. That's accidental, meaning man made. Someone did something, you know,
Hmm.
to the property accidentally, right? The other 20% is natural disasters, storms, hurricanes, you know, just the house destroyed due to some of the wildfires is another
Hmm.
one, hailstorms. Those are some of the things. And what we saw is that disasters displaced 3 million Americans in 2022.
Hmm.
Let me say that again. Disasters displaced 3 million Americans in 2022. And that is according to Scientific American.
I love
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah.
let me ask you this. Like one of the I think that stood out on this interview was the ability to say yes
Yeah.
to insurance providers. I was like, that's actually like when you were like build relationships with hosts, I was
Yes.
wondering where you were going to take that. And when you said say yes to them, because I imagine that if they're coming to you, you want to be that relationship with that where they can come to you and
Every
no
time.
matter what, you'll solve it. So I have relationships with attorneys. I sell real estate for a living and they come to me for anything. And whenever they come to me, I figure it out and I solve it because I know that if they come to me for those things, they're going to come to me first when it comes time for a client selling a property. And that's
Yeah.
what it made me think of. It made me think of like them coming to you and then you figuring it out. So what are different ways of monetizing? Like, let's say my friend has a property that's empty for the next 3 months. Would we split that $16,000? Would I just tell them, hey, let me rent this for $2,600? What are different structures that you can do by having relationships with other hosts and also having that relationship with that insurance company? Because I thought that was like, oh, that's actually really good advice.
It is. And as a matter of fact, that is so important because you want to be the go-to person. And guess what? Your calendar will never be empty if you're the go-to person. So I love that. Okay. So I've seen a number of different structures that have been made. I actually, surprisingly, although my main bread and butter is teaching other medical professionals how to do this, I attract a lot of real estate agents. And
Mm-hmm.
so the real estate agents who are finding, you know, housing for relocation, they love this strategy and they create placement opportunities for themselves. So they are actually reaching out. They're doing the cold calling. You know, they're loving it because they're already cold calling. So it works for them. And so if they can place a property in a client's home that is number one, an expired listing that was empty, and they're like, well, you know what, I don't want to take the lower price. They say, well, let's set up as a midterm rental, you know, for the next several months. So give you some time to think about it, right? So they will place that, either rent the property out and arbitrage it. They will place it and charge that, you know, a haircut on that, whether it's 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, depending on what the rules are around that state of the finder's fees or whatever that is. They can charge a haircut. I've trained some other people who've had just a smaller portfolio of properties. They're fully booked, and so now they decide, you know what? They love this. They're cold calling and creating a database of of properties and of addresses, right? And they're cold calling. Now they have a listing, and now they're putting it out there, and they'll charge what they charge, whatever it's, if it's $1,500, if it's 2,000. I haven't seen a 50-50 split, but I've seen them take, a haircut off of whatever the amount is. But it's, you can JV it however you want. I think as long as there are no regulatory constraints around it, you can set it up however you want. Just everything with a partnership or a JV, as long as you have it all in writing, the expectations are clear, there are good feelings around it. I say, give it a
Do it.
try. Do it. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Like, what if, like, I know that fire and water are big in any market. Like, is there a place where I can find out how big of an opportunity it is? Like, meaning, like, how many fire claims there are in a month in Ventura, or how many fire or water claims in Ventura are there in a month? Because I think, like, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, I've got 57 rentals in Ventura County. How do I figure out if there's even a market for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, there is a website with the Census Bureau, and I'm trying to pull it up right now. Okay, it's called Displaced Family Census Data, and it's a household pulse survey, and it shows you in real time how many people are displaced due to natural disaster this month. Yeah, April, June, yeah, all of the states and how many people in each state. So it's like state and citywide, but it looks like you can drill down even further. So look up this, the census household pulse survey, and it says
Mhm.
displaced family census data. You can look there. But honestly, I'm gonna spill all the tea. I'm going to spill all the tea. I just shoot my shot. I'll just start listing properties in different areas, say, I wonder if this market is good. And I wonder if this market is good. And if, as long as I'm interested in that specific market, I'll list it. And if I get an inquiry, that's why I'm selfishly building a network of other hosts throughout the US. So I can say, hey guys, I've got, I've got an inquiry, come and get it. And depending on how many inquiries I get, it gives me
Listing
a
this listing it like on Airbnb or listing it on ALE
on
Solutions or some of
ALE.
the ALE. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really a good place to list the properties at ALE Solutions, basically.
That's where the internal staff is looking. Yeah, it's like an intranet. It's not one of those places where you list it and you have that warm and fuzzy feeling of, oh, there's my listing. It's so cute, so pretty. It disappears. It's gone. And it goes into maybe like a back end spreadsheet. It's like on a form, on there. And that's how they're able to see it.
I love it. How do I figure out how much to charge? Like if I'm
Okay, so
submitting it
that's a
on
great
ALE,
question.
like how do I know like what market rent is, for this
Yeah,
type of
so it's a balancing act. You don't want to charge too little to give the impression, or you don't want to list it at a lower price tier to give the impression that you are going to, just accept any bottom of the barrel pricing. And you don't want to go too high so that you don't get the conversation started. So you want to kind of start off somewhere in the middle when you're listing it. But when it's time for negotiations, here's what we know. We know that most insurance policies, the rebuild value of the policy dictates how much the temporary housing allowance is going to be. And that's usually between 20 to 30% of the rebuild value. So I have something that I train my members on called the rule of 25. So say I purchase a property for $500,000. The actual structure is $400,000. The rule of 25 says 25% of the structure rebuild value is the ceiling, the max that I can charge for midterm rental. So 25% of 400,000, they have an allowance, a midterm rental allowance of
of 100,000?
$100,000 per claim per year.
Which that would mean like let's say that the term of the stay is a year. 100,000 would be about $9,000 a month. So it's a way of backing into the number without necessarily backing into it. Now, if I'm
Beautiful.
advertising it for rent on ALE, would I put $9,000 on ALE
I wouldn't
or
put it. My goal is to get there. What I would put on ALE, you want to I call it read the room. Read the room, look in your market as an end user. How much would it cost for me to rent a property for 30 days in my market? On Airbnb, on Verbo, on Furnished Finder, just kind of read the room and see the like kinds of properties, how much it would charge, how much it would cost. And if everyone's saying about 5,000 for 30 days, then I would go like 6,000 or something like that. But when the conversation happens, a few things you want to take into consideration. Oh, hey, by the way, I'm pet friendly. By the way, we're going into our peak season. By the way, so we're going to inch our way as close as possible. By the way, I need a non-refundable deposit because we have these pads, by the way. And then that's how we get there. So you're getting all the tea.
and it's funny. That's usually my goal whenever I bring on guests. My goal is to go very deep on one topic, and I usually find that I learn like little things. Like I didn't know about the census data website. I didn't know about the saying yes. So how much is a non-refundable deposit typically in these sorts of cases?
It's not too much. I would say it's somewhere around anywhere from $800 to $2,000, depending on the size of the home, because this is a guest who's actually going to live in the space. So we're going to have some paint touch ups. All the linens are trashed. Like we need all new linens, for that period of time. So I want to make sure I can cover some of those expenses because overall, our short term rentals, our capital operating expenses are at about 35 to 42% of, bottom, top line. When it comes to midterm rentals, because of some of the things that we have in place, we've gotten the operating expenses down to 22, 23%, which I absolutely love, so I'm still getting almost short-term rental dollars, but with the lower operating expenses. I'm just riding this out. We've been doing this since 2018, so we love it.
I love it. So let's negotiate with a insurance adjuster. So let's say that I call you. I'm like, hey, look, I actually need a property. Do you have something in place? And let's say that you're advertising it for $6,000. How would you inch your way up to $7,000, $8,000, $9,000?
Yeah. So the great thing is that everything happens on paper. So I've never spoken to the insurance adjuster. I only speak with the temporary housing agents. They let me know what they need. I let them know. And then I send a proposal immediately. And my proposal has everything listed. And I have a proposal of terms. I send it their way. And they're 80% of the time, they have a flat affect. There's no emotion involved. They're like, sure, I'll send it. Sometimes they don't even read it. They send it over to the adjuster. The adjuster is the one who either approves or denies it. Okay. So there's really, I know that only there's like one or two people in my community that have actually dealt with an adjuster directly, but I deal with zero adjusters. 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with a temporary housing agent. They just need to place a person somewhere and they're hoping that everyone agrees and everything gets approved so that they can move on. And you could put $100,000 on there. They're like, great, I'll send it over. Like no emotion at all. No attachment to the result.
How do I build relationships with temporary housing agents?
All I do is I email them whenever we're about to have a vacancy. So I'll email them and say, hey, we have a 60-day notice to vacate. Just to let you know, this is going to become available. So whenever they reach out, you want to build that database of emails. Once they reach out to you, even if you don't have an availability, do your best to say yes. But if you can't make it work, keep that. You now have an email. You now have an asset. Right? Just by you listing today, you now have an asset, that email address. That's how you build a relationship. As soon as you have an availability or you're going to have something, or you suspect that, you know what, this is a market that I want to invest in. Say, hey, I have a property that's coming up available in this market. Do you or anyone have a need in this particular market? So that one email is a great way to start.
Is there any database for temporary housing agents?
Not
No.
that I'm aware of, not their names per se, but each company, I'm sure they have an internal list, or you can even go to LinkedIn to find all of the companies, such as ALE Solutions. There's Temporary Housing Directory. So their employees are usually titled search specialist or relocation specialist. So if you want to dive deep in that web, you can find them that way potentially.
Got it. What's included in your proposal to them? Like, so like if break down your proposal as to what's included in there.
Okay, so that's a great question. So I'll have the term, so start date and date. I'll have the monthly rate. I have when rent is due, almost like a mini lease. I'll have the pet friendly rules around being pet friendly or what we're charging around that. I'll add that utilities are included. I'll add something about lawn maintenance is included as well, bundle prices, unlimited extensions. So that's pretty much it. Just kind of giving them the lowdown of the terms. I don't think there's anything else really.
Cleaning,
I feel like there
maybe
might be. Was
cleaning,
that?
cleaning
Yes,
like every so often.
cleaning. So cleaning, I wrap that into, I have one big cleaning fee, a moving cleaning fee, and then I'll incrementally wrap in some more into the monthly rate because we get the house cleaned every single month. You protect the asset. You got to protect the asset. So every month our cleaners clean so that at the end of the stay, it's not a big, gigantic mess. And we're not doing gut jobs. We're not going to do that. It's yeah. So the cleaners not only are cleaning, but they're spying as well to let me know what's going on.
Got it. Aside from cleaning once a month, how else do you keep track of your asset to make sure that it's performing well? And then what are some of the management involved? Like, are you checking in with the guest every so often? What are some things that revolve around the management of the asset?
What's been amazing, honestly, Jose Luis, it's these individuals, we've become friends with some of them, you know? And the thing is, they want to keep us informed. They're like, hey, this contractor, didn't quite show up. I don't think I can ever recommend them again. And so it's almost like, it really feels like a network. So they're very informative. Some of them again are working in the current community. Some worked at my kids high school, right? Some knew the principal in my kids elementary school. So it's that feeling for the communities where we actually live locally. Some properties are remote, but it's definitely that feeling. And so they've been some of the best guests. There's one who had his son come home from the military. They're like, oh, I know that there's a guest count, but our son is coming home from the military. And it's that family who they come from an 11-bedroom home. Like
Mhm.
there's no apartment that can hold this family, right? 11-bedroom home. The only thing that was close enough in our entire town was my 6-bedroom home property. And so they come and, we have a backyard. It's on a couple of acres, this particular property. And so they do barbecue and they invite us over and we'll come over every now and then. And so it's a different vibe. They're very low maintenance. They're amazing, amazing guests. And so cleaning, definitely, if there's anything that they detect, and they're good little detectives. Oh, just wanted to know, the sink was like wobbly or whatever, send the maintenance over and, just be responsive. The reason our operating expenses are a little bit lower too, Jose Luis, is because with short-term rental guests, if something's wrong, you need to fix it right away. It could be the middle of the night. You're paying the premium. With mid-term rental, you have a little bit of that breathing room. You're like, oh, okay, we'll get to it Monday. If it's not anything like earth
Mhm.
shattering, we'll get to it Monday. Then you're not paying those inflated plumbing fees because you're asking a plumber to come out in the middle of the night, right? So, yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Any other things that we might have missed that you think would be helpful for somebody looking to build a midterm rental?
Oh, that's a great question. I just think it's powerful. It's important. It's really important to understand how to navigate in all real estate environments because real estate cycles, right? And right now we're hitting against several different regulatory constraints. So for those of you who are only into short-term rentals and you're closing your ears, open your ears back up. It's not if, it's when you're faced with something where you might need to reposition yourself a little bit. So make sure that you understand how this insurance midterm rental works, which is recession proof, which is COVID proof, but also know, well, what is another good backup secondary market that you can tap into, whether you're in a town where there are conferences that happen, again and again, whether it's political campaigns, whether it's construction workers, figure out what's going on in your particular market and have, that as your backup plan. It's always important to kind of start with the end in mind, I think.
I love it. I love it. And then if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, Dr. Rachel, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I have a list of the top cities with the highest profitability for short-term rentals and midterm rentals. So if you want to go to 75 Gems, that's 75gems.com, 75gems.com. You'll get the list right there.
I love it. So I want to say thank you, Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, for coming on the show. For our viewers out there, we discussed how to rent a property via a midterm rental, had a couple key takeaways, also avoiding rookie mistakes when entering the midterm rental market. If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you feel that this episode will be helpful, make sure to hit that share button. Thank you again, Dr. Rachel, and to our viewers, until next time.